Hi there. I'm joined here by Reuben, owner of Touchdown Tech. He builds websites that are scalable, maintainable, and are easy to use today, tomorrow, and to years to come. Welcome, Reuben, for coming and joining us today. It's a great privilege to have you here. I had a customer once ask me here in the last week or so, wondering about how important it is to add alt text to an image.
Yeah. So normally you probably don't even think of why would you add text to an image? You might even think, is that text on top of an image? But it's not. Alt text, it stands for alternative, and it was actually designed or intended for people that are blind who are using screen readers to, read a web page. And obviously they can't see the image. So the alt text is an alternative to the image. It's supposed to be text describing what the image is. And so it ended up being important also for SEO to give more context because robots, now with AI it's a little bit different, but back in the day robots could read text, they could understand words, but they couldn't tell you what an image was. They just saw, hey, here's an image file, and they could see the file name, but they couldn't see actually what the image was. So again, like I said, today it's a little bit different maybe with AI. Like it can look at an image and understand what it is, but it's still considered best practices to add alt text to an image. And so our process at Touchdown Tech, which you handle most of the normal ongoing content creation and adding images, and you get images typically from the client. And our process is we need to make sure it's the right or best file format for its use case. So that if it's a photo, which would be like a photo of like a real person or a real room, then we would typically use, this changed in the last few years. It used to be JPEG, and now we typically would use WebP. And if it's more of a graphic, maybe like a logo or maybe just like a pattern of some sort, that can vary. Ideally, we would use an SVG for that, which is just code. But sometimes it is more, and it scales. So because it's code, whether it's this size, like a half an inch, or it takes up the full height or width of your screen, it looks just as crystal clear because it's not being pulled bigger than its max size. It is just drawing itself to fit that size. So it uses its code, so it scales perfectly without pixelation. So I would typically look at starting let's do it in SVG. However, depending on what it is, sometimes it is more efficient to use again a WebP or PNG if it's a especially maybe if it's a repeating background. We're getting off topic a little bit here, but we'll get back to alt text and more of that in a little bit here, or especially how to write good alt text, because you can definitely hurt yourself. In some cases, it would be better not to have alt text than to have really bad alt text. So one example of where it might make more sense to have a WebP or a PNG instead of an SVG, even if it is more of a graphic or design visual, is if it's a very small icon that is repeating to create what looks like a pattern or like a wallpaper. It's just it's the same little thing repeated over and over again. Yeah. And it might be more efficient to have that as a WebP or a PNG, even though it doesn't scale to get bigger. We want it to be small and just repeat horizontally and vertically to take up some available space. Yeah. So the first thing our process is make sure it's the right format for what we're using it for. Yep. So if it's a photo, we want that to be probably a WebP. It used to be a JPEG, but probably a WebP now. And if it's more like a graphic thing, we'd probably go look at SVG first, and then actually again do WebP, because WebP can do transparent backgrounds, whereas JPEG it can't. So a few years ago, it used to be JPEG and PNG. But now it's almost like WebP can kind of do it all and do it better. So after we've picked the right file format, we want to make sure that we're not uploading an image that's way larger than it needs to be. So If you take most pictures, even with an iPhone, it will be well, I'm not sure exactly, but it could be like 3,000 by 4,000 pixels, and sometimes even much. I mean, for sure, like a professional camera would be much larger even than that, and you really can't utilize that on your website. So, and again, this is it slowly changes over time. It used to be that my max size would have been 1,920 pixels, either tall or wide, and now just in the last few months, really, I've increased that to 2,560 pixels. So that's the max size I want to upload to my website, because, you might think, well, let's upload the highest quality version that's possible that we have, but if you're not going to use it in the next year, you'll probably end up reshooting a new photo that will, if you ever would get to a point that you could utilize more pixels, you'll probably be ready to take a new photo anyway. So it just ends up using like a lot of space. It ends up it's just an unnecessary bloat to your website, to your file system. Anyway, so that's what we do. We make sure it's right file format, and then we resize it so that it's only as big as or down to our max size. And then after that, we upload it to our website. And our websites are set up to automatically compress. So based on your website, like sometimes pictures are critical where you want them to be like almost print quality, but most of the time it's not that critical. So like on our website, Touchdown Tech, I think I have the compression quality set to 80. But if you would have it, if you would want like almost, if like the pixel perfect details matter, maybe for like a photography website, and you really want people to be able to see exactly what this looks like if they get it printed, or almost what it would look like if they get it printed, then you might want to go with a higher quality, a lossless quality where you don't lose any pixels visually anyway. So, and our websites will do that automatically. So you can do this with tools like Squoosh. Actually, I set up a really cool action on my Mac and for Nicholas where it uses Pixelmator Pro, which is an application for Mac, and you can right-click on an image or select multiple images, and you can have like a little action that will resize it and compress it, and put it in the right format too, which is pretty cool. If you're interested in that, I guess you can leave a comment below, and I can share that with you, or show you how to do that. But anyway, so after we then finally have it uploaded on the site, oh sorry, I missed one part. So alt text is important, and you can change alt text after it's added to the website, but you can't change the file name of an image, at least not in WordPress, not without a special plugin. And part of the reason for that is that once you upload a file, multiple versions will get created of it that are different sizes. And so it becomes kind of complicated and difficult if you would be able to rename a file, to go and rename all those different sizes. And so the way that WordPress does it is if I upload a file with a file name Our Cabin in Bremen, Indiana, I upload it. That's like our biggest file size, the 2560. I upload it to WordPress. It automatically creates different versions of it that are smaller so that I can use different versions of it in different contexts. And also, based on the screen size, it will also choose it'll choose the smallest image that will still utilize the pixels that the device allows. So, which basically means it'll load faster without sacrificing quality of the picture that you're seeing. And so if it would be able to go and rename that file, you'd have to do it in like multiple places, and especially get complicated if it would, if I've already used the image on a bunch of different pages or articles or wherever. So in WordPress natively, it's not possible to rename a file. And again, part of our process is we just rename it before we upload it. So that's a good process to just have. So we'll rename it, and we name using kebab format, which is basically all lowercase, and instead of spaces, use dashes. The only special character allowed is a dash before you get to the file extension like .webp. So our cabin in Bremen would be all lowercase, our cabin Bremen. And I don't include prepositions in the file name, but it's not, just to keep it a little bit shorter. It still keeps the context, and like search engines can see what the file name is, and like, yes, this is another indicator, this is a cabin in Bremen. And again, I don't know if I said this at the beginning of the video, but this is becoming less and less important than it was, 5-10 years ago. It used to be really important to like name your files correctly, give them good quality alt text, but it's becoming less and less important. But it's still part of the best practices, which is what we do. We follow best practices in web design and marketing. So I think the biggest question was, what is a good alt text to use? So again, let's go back to like, what's the intent for alt text? It was to describe the image for someone who couldn't actually see it. So the alt text has been abused over the years by people trying to game the system, and that's not something we do. We don't try gimmicky things or to try to trick search engines. We again follow best practices, and even though in the short term some gimmicky stuff might work, in the long run it creates messes and will end up hurting you in the long run. So I would just describe the image that's there in the context of what you're trying to like sell, or the point you're trying to make. So if you're selling, let's just say we're selling fireplaces. Let's say we're selling fireplace rings. And so the picture might be of a cabin by a woods with a fireplace ring. Now, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So you could say 1,000 different things about this picture. But the point we're trying to make is this ring. Like, that's what we're trying to sell or draw attention to. So I would probably say something like, let's just go back to our cabin in Bremen example. I would probably write something like cabin in front of woods with a circular fire ring with logs burning.
Or still at your local dealer. No, I'm just kidding.
Something like that. Like you're describing the picture, you're including the part that the point you're trying to make, the thing you're trying to sell. But we're not saying world's best circular fire ring. We're not going overboard with it. And in order to keep things, this is just like a principle overall. You want to keep things structured and consistent. So what we do, we will use sentence case for alt text. So this makes it really easy, especially if you use voice to text. You can very quickly get through alt text on a bunch of images just by, just talking to your computer, and it'll spit out what it's supposed to be. And typically by default, it'll use sentence case anyway. And then I reserve using title case only for titles. This is a little bit of a side note, but even for headings on a web page, I use sentence case, and then we can style it to look like title case or all caps. One of the cardinal sins in web design is using all caps, like writing in all caps, because there's two issues with it. One is like you're stuck with that. You can't go and change it to sentence case because it's all caps. Number two, if that shows up in the search engine, the results, it just looks very unprofessional to have all caps in your on your search results page. So you'll see this sometimes. Like the title will sometimes have like all caps, or like in the description it'll have like all caps, like a few sentences, and it just doesn't look great. It just looks it looks kind of gimmicky, even though you might not be thinking of it that way. It is gimmicky. So that. Yeah, was there any questions, Nicholas, outside of what I just shared?
So alt text. So let's say going back to the whole reason why alt text was actually formed. Since with AI, do they not use alt text as much? If a blind person would be trying to read a website, would AI since AI is so important now and so big?
Yeah.
Would AI just read everything and kind of just spit it out what it kind of sees, or would it still use alt text as
Well, I'm sure it would still use alt text.
Okay, so alt
but-
text is still being used.
For sure. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's being used by screen readers. Like, that's what it was
Gotcha,
designed
okay.
for. And I am, yes, AI bots, like, they're definitely looking at the alt text for an image as
Okay.
well. In some cases, they might be pulling the image and, like, rendering it and looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
But that takes a lot of resources, a lot more
Yeah.
resources than just reading the text that's
Yeah.
there. So, no, the alt text, it is still important. It's just less important than it used to be, probably partly that for SEO. It's as important as it ever was for screen readers, but it's becoming less important and less impactful for SEO, probably because of how much it's been abused.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah.
I gotcha. Very good. Very good. Okay, so how, like, alt text and captions, does captions play anything into, or titles compared to alt text?
No, it doesn't. We always, in part of our process is just fill out the caption and the title with the alt text,
So the same thing as alt text.
but it doesn't add anything to it.
Okay.
But the caption is what you would use. Like sometimes you have a caption under an image,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's what would be used there. And it doesn't have to be same as a alt text, but part of our process is just like make it all the same.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, very good. Thank you. That's all the questions I have. And if you guys got questions, you're watching this, then please write in, comment below, and Reuben will answer them. And yeah, as good as he can. And yeah, I guess from now on, do your alt text as good as possible, but don't add filler words. And so yeah, thank you so much, Reuben, for joining us today. And yeah, we'll see you guys later.